Welcome to the Self-Reliant Steward podcast. I'm your host, Damia Shimon. On this podcast, I will share stories, scriptures, words of the prophets, and research to help you, Latter-day Saint parents, teach your teens, and create a financial legacy of self-reliance. No more living paycheck to paycheck. No more going in and out of debt. Start today to change your family's life for the better by becoming a wise steward of what the Lord has blessed you with. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Self-Reliant Steward podcast. Again, I'm your host, Damia Shimon. Today, I have a special guest with me, Harmony. She's one of my best friends, and she'll be popping into the podcast occasionally to discuss different topics with me. So, welcome, Harmony.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Okay, so as always, we're going to start off with our money trivia question. So, Harmony, I'm going to give you an opportunity to answer, and it's okay if you don't know. Most people don't know these things. I don't even know some of these things until I research them. So, what is the average cost of raising a child to adulthood?
From when they're born to when they're 18?
Yeah.
Okay, let me think. I think I've heard this answer before and it was really big, but I don't remember. Is it like 2 million or something?
No, it's lower than that, but
Oh, okay.
not quite that much. I found it kind of ranged between like 200,000 to 400,000. So like the average is like around 300,000. Still a lot of money.
That's a lot of money still.
So depending on how much you actually spend on your kids will depend on how much that ends up being. Well, today we're continuing our discussion on mistakes teens make with money and how to help them avoid or overcome those mistakes. And today we're talking about wants and needs, like helping our kids realize and recognize their wants versus needs and that there's a difference and how to balance their spending with those. That also brings up like impulse buying. So we don't want them to be spending all of the money that they earn. So one question I was thinking about is how do you define a need versus a want?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think as you grow older, I think this question's also hard for adults as well. Like if you think
Definitely.
about it, like a lot of adults are like, I need a boat. And you're like, okay. And like for me, I'm like, I don't know, but like for some people that has value to their lives is like their family, like spends time boating, so then like a boat would enhance family time. So in a sense, that's a value put on that. For teenagers specifically, like the biggest thing is trying to differentiate their needs between their wants. Because like kids need different things. They need school supplies, they need like food, they need different things. But I think the problem is that parents provide a lot for those needs, and so then the kids are kind of left with, right? Not a lot of things that they actually need. And so then
Yeah,
it just turns into
definitely.
lumps.
Yeah, and that's why we're having this conversation because if teens don't ever get to a chance to distinguish those, then I think they'll end up impulse buying more or just spending more on their wants and wanting to start off their life living away from home with all the things that their parents had because that's what they're used to, and they don't recognize that, or they may not recognize that they can live with certain things and they can live without certain things. And I think just also in the world today, with all of the technology we have and the creature comforts we enjoy, I think you're right. It is really hard for everyone. And it can especially be hard for the rising generation, even our generation, to distinguish that and to rein in a little bit. I definitely think it is important to spend money on things we want, but it needs to be in moderation.
Yeah, for sure. With that, like when you're having a lot of um different like needs going on, because like for some people they do have different needs. There are different things that help balance their lives. And so it's hard to like have a cut list, I think, between like for I don't know, there's a hard list of like you need food, water, air, and like that's basically what you need to survive, right?
I mean, I would add shelter and clothing.
Yeah,
That kind
shelter
of
and clothing. Okay,
helps.
yeah, yeah. I was like, there's more to that. I can't remember. But at the same time, like those are just basic needs that we all need. Everything else is kind of just supplementary to that lifestyle of just survival. Um, but then if you add like other aspects of your life where you're like, okay, how can I, enhance different parts of my life? Then it's important for us to like figure out, okay, what's necessary to keep within those aspects. That was my thought.
Yeah, I think going along with that, what comes to mind is prioritizing. So when we create a budget, which is like our way of creating boundaries around money, and deciding how we're going to spend our money so that money doesn't control us, we can start with those basic human needs. And then from there, we need to prioritize, okay, then what is an additional need, and then from there go into the wants, because like we could say electricity isn't a need if we're defining needs just by the basic human needs, but
Hmm.
in today's world it kind of is a necessity. It is a need because we use electricity to cook our food and to see in our house and to like heat it and air condition it depending on the season of the year. So i think I think it comes down to prioritizing then.
Yeah, no, it's kind of like what you said in one of your podcasts recently, is you were talking about how like you took you prioritized buying tickets to Hawaii and going to Hawaii over like over like a car or something else at the time, because that was something that was more important at the time for you to focus on, while the other thing wasn't a need at the time that you needed to focus.
Yeah, I prioritize my savings categories in the order that I did it in. Harmony, do you have any stories that you can think of in your life about when you did or didn't prioritize or look at your needs versus your wants?
Yeah, so growing up, like not like we didn't have a lot of money like in my household, but so when we did get like money, we would go straight to the dollar store. Like, like $5 for your birthday, from your grandparents and stuff like that. Easter change you'd get in like eggs and stuff like that. Like it would all go majority of the time to like we would go to the dollar store, and because it was like it's cheap. It doesn't cost a lot of money. Like you get a lot of little things instead of just like one thing for like $4. And that's kind of the mindset that I like grew up with, where we would just be like, oh, like we gotta go to the dollar store. But um, like when I was 17, it kind of changed a little. Like I don't know, like my mindset slowly like changing about money still. Like I'm still figuring out how to like view it and stuff. Like numbers don't really like work for my brain very much, so it's kind of hard to like visualize how much the money actually is. Um, but when I think I was about 18, my family was planning there's a family reunion in California, and so we decided to save up our money. Um, and so we worked really hard to like we helped babysit and we did a lot of stuff to earn money and like extra chores, like and kind of outside the home a couple things, and we earned our money for SeaWorld and for just the trip in general for like extra things we wanted. Um, and like my parents covered the basic needs of like the Airbnb and stuff like that, but and food, and so we didn't have to like worry about that. So we could like buy souvenirs. We could go to like we bought our own tickets to SeaWorld, which are usually like $60-$70. But my brother was buying a ticket and he was like just barely like 12. Like
Wow.
so like me, my brother, and my sister, I think my sister was like 15 at the time. I don't know. So like we all earned up our money to buy tickets to SeaWorld. And it was kind of cool because it was like the first time in my life I'd ever like really bought. something that was like an experience, I guess, because my family doesn't travel very much. And so it was like we bought this experience and I did it myself and I worked for it. And it was just crazy to like we went and we could just spend our money and it wasn't like don't waste your money. It was like we earned our money for this specifically so that we could think about using it for that. And so that was really cool to have that moment to be like, okay, like, you know, what like I did this and I can save money and I can build up. And so that was cool that my mom had us do that and she didn't just be like my parents honestly they couldn't pay for something like that. They're like if we're all going together we all gotta like pull our weight to kind of get there. And so that was able to create a memory for our family as well because we all earned our way to go on that trip.
That's really cool. And I love that you brought that story up because while we're talking about prioritizing needs in this episode, we also want to be careful not to develop that scarcity mindset or think that we can only spend money on things that we need. Um, and in thinking about that, that actually reminded me of a post that I posted on social media about a month ago. Um, I said something like, "Does the Lord want us to obtain riches? I believe He does, as long as we have the right mindset and the right purpose for them. I do not believe that He wants us to be poor or barely able to meet our financial obligations. I believe He wants us to enjoy our resources, to bless our families and others, and enjoy. He wants us to use our resources to bless our families and others and to enjoy life." And Brigham Young said, when this people are prepared to properly use the riches of this world for the building up of the kingdom of God, He is ready and willing to bestow them upon us. I like to see men get rich by their industry, prudence, management, and economy, and then devote it to the building up of the kingdom of God on the earth. I definitely think part of building up the kingdom is creating those experiences and those memories with our families. And yes, we can have experiences that don't cost us any money, but it's also really fun to work and to see in a big experience like a family vacation what we can do with our money and create a bigger memory as well.
Yeah. No, and we definitely learned that with that experience of like doing that ourselves. I love that quote. That's a really good quote.
Yeah, so my experiences in relation to wants and needs, I feel like over the last few years, there have been times where I had a job and I had money and I was able to prioritize needs. And, obviously I still had like fun money in my budget as well. And then there were periods of time after that that I didn't have a job. And when I got a job again, I just had this feeling like it was built up of all these things that I had seen over that period of time of not having a job that I wanted. I definitely have mindset things to work through still. I really had the desire to spend on a lot of things that I wanted because I wasn't able to for a long time. And so I did go and spend on some things. I was able to keep it reined in, but I think I want to, in the future, help myself not have that feeling as much. And I think, other people to help their teens not experience that so that they don't go in and impulse buy. And like, I don't want to go through cycles of not having a lot and so not spending at all and then going to having some things and then spending all of it. So I think to help with that, you can give your teens responsibility for paying for some of their needs once they start earning money. So, like Harmony said, when she went and babysat and did some other outside chores, teens can go earn money that not from their parents. I don't think parents need to be providing their children with the money that they need to start um, practicing budgeting and managing their money. They can go to other sources. And if you want a resource for that, I have a free 20 Best Jobs for Latter-day Saint Teens download that you can download through the link in the description. And then you can give your teens opportunities and responsibility for paying for things like their clothing or their phone bill or gas or saving up for and buying a car for themselves.
Yeah, I like that. And one thing like I know my my younger brother, he used to like mow lawns. He helps like every once in a while, but like he was like 14 and he was like going out and mowing lawns for like people, and he was like really good at it. And so like having like those skills also can help in the long run as well. And you can develop them really young. Like there's a lot of skills that people are like, you have to wait until you're older. But like there's kids that like there's teenagers, like there's even kids that are starting businesses. Like they're selling things, they're being entrepreneurs. And that like is changing the way people view teenagers, I in a sense, where they're like, oh, you know what? Like they can do that, like,
Mhm.
you know. Because I think there's a block in society on how when people become teenagers, like they're like, well, once you turn 18, you can be an adult, but before then, just don't care about it. Like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I think work um has not been like teaching children how to work has not been a priority.
Mm-mm.
I don't know culturally what happened that, well, I guess maybe it's like if you think about the pioneer times, literally everyone had to help out in order to provide for the whole family the basic necessities of life. And now it's no longer that way. But I found a talk by Elder Ballard, now President Ballard, but he just passed away. Um, but yeah, at the time when he was Elder Ballard, I love this talk and I'll link to it in the show notes. But he said, parents need to teach children very early that a solid financial base is a very important element in a happy home. We can do much with our young people to help them find satisfying, rewarding employment. We should encourage them to do well in their schoolwork and to learn to take advantage of opportunities that will help build a solid base for their future security. And I love that. And I think that giving teens the responsibility for paying for some of their financial needs, um, and then and helping them to learn how to work early on can help them one develop that work ethic, and then also if they get a part-time job when they're a teenager, it can help them get a job later on. Whereas like I know for me, getting a job when I turned 18 was really hard because I didn't have any job experience. um, But if teenagers start working and find places that will hire them and they start working as a teenager, then getting the next job will be easier and hopefully the next job and the next job, and then they can maintain a more consistent income than I feel like our generation has been able to.
Yeah, and to add on that real quick, like I feel like shadowing should be done
Mm.
more in like when they're teenagers. I know I was like looking into engineering when I was like 16, 15, 16, and there was a lady who did like CAD designing, which is like where you just draw on the computer. It's like 3D designing on the computer and stuff for architecture. And I was like, oh, I really want to learn how to do that. So I asked to shadow her, and I was able to shadow her for like an afternoon while she did her job and kind of showed me her thing. And eventually like decided not to go into engineering, but for me that was an opportunity where I could go and I could be like, you know what? I like that, or oh, I don't like the aspect of that job. Maybe it's not something I want to go into. So then by the time they graduate high school, then they know what they want to go into more than just being like, oh, I don't know what to do for college, or I don't know if I want to go to college. Like then they'll know I want to go to tech school or I want to go to college or I want to wait a little bit to figure out what I want still.
Yeah, I love that. And that leads right into next week's episode is my first interview about a career. So I'm interviewing a nurse practitioner, and I'm going to be doing other interviews about one a month in the podcast of different people in different careers to help your teens see if that may be something that they could be interested in, and then they can go shadow or interview that somebody that they know and find out more about that career to learn if that is what they want to go into and to learn what their education path needs to look like so that they don't waste their money on going to college if it's not what they need to be doing, or go to college for several semesters trying to figure out what they want to do and then maybe figure out what they want to do, maybe not, but they may have wasted some time and money trying to figure out what they want to do. So join me next week as I interview a nurse practitioner, and I'll see you in the next episode.